On the morning the river forgot to sing, the women woke first, not from sleep, but from a cold shape made of worry. The shallow pools were crusted, the fish lay like small moons on mud, and the children's footsteps in the dust made too much sound. Nia was 25 when the drought arrived that year. She had the hands of someone who knew both mortar and market. She ground millet at dusk and sold small baskets at dawn. Her village, Dagara, sat in a wide plain crowned by a single ancient baobab that elders said had seen 3 generations plant, harvest, and grieve beneath its shade. When the rains failed, traders came from the town with smooth promises. One man, an efficient voice and a folder of foreign numbers, offered a plan. Sell a strip of community land for a cash infusion. In return, he would install a big pump and plant a single, high-yield crop. It sounded like a bridge out of hunger, but it also sounded like a blade against the roots people had kept beneath their feet. Nia remembered the baobab's story voice. Roots, remember. She also knew the small foods that had saved her neighbors in earlier lean seasons, trees and leaves that hid more than flavor in their fibers, powder from the baobab fruit, leaves that steadied the blood and fed children when porridge was thin. Those foods were not showy, but they were resilient and local. Refusing the clean envelopes would have been simple courage. Making a different path was harder. Nia pulled together the women's circle, the smith, and a few hard-to-convince youth. They pooled what they had: seed, labor, and a few old farming tricks some had almost forgotten: small pits to catch every rare drop of rain, mounds of compost to hold what little fertility remained. The technique they revived, digging shallow, concentrated planting basins that trap rain and organic matter, had been rescued by farmers in the Sahel and shown to restore degraded soils and raise yields even where the land seemed finished. They called the pits by the old name Zai. They also planted moringa seedlings along field edges and under the baobab. Moringa grew fast, and its leaves were dense with the sorts of vitamins and minerals that repaired a malnourished child more reliably than a one-off food drop. The women began to dry leaves into powder and mix them into porridge for infants. As harvest time crept near, the investor returned with bigger bags of money and a firmer tone. "Why rebuild slowly when you can buy certainty?" he asked. Some elders, exhausted by worry, wanted to accept. To show what rebuild slowly looked like, Nia invited traders to a small market by the baobab. They served sorghum ground with a pinch of moringa, and they showed a row of zai pits, each one a little green promise. The market was not only a fair, it was an experiment. Small surpluses from these methods were already being traded for salt and soap. People tasted the porridge and listened to neighbors explain how soil in a single zai pit could hold a season's worth of rain where the flat field could not. The demonstration created a different kind of certainty, one the investor hadn't priced. Nia framed the choice not as tradition versus modernity, but as a question every listener could feel. Do we become a ledger with a sold page, or do we become a net that catches each other? That question echoed a wider human practice. Across the continent, many communities follow relational ethics summed up by phrases like, "I am because we are," a way of thinking that places community well-being at the center of decision-making. This soft idea became a hard strategy. They formed a cooperative, guarded custodial land and agreed to share profits from any external partnerships under strict public terms. This relational ethic, often called Ubuntu in Southern Africa, emphasizes interconnected personhood and communal responsibility. The investor, surprised by the village's unity and the market's steady buyers, softened his demands. He offered equipment for communal use rather than outright control. The village accepted, but only as partners. Over the next seasons, zai pits multiplied across former wasteland, moringa orchards shaded narrow paths, and the baobab began to show fresh green at its crown. Children who had once seen hunger as inevitable learned to test the soil with a twig and to count rain in the pits. Nia taught them the quiet mathematics of resilience. Small acts stacked, like bricks, form shelter. Ending and moral. When the river finally sang again, it was not because weather had changed alone, but because a small, stubborn plan had kept life through the quiet season. Dagara's lesson was simple and sharp. Sustainable survival is built by combining local knowledge with collective choice, not by selling the ground that remembers you.